यहाँ पर
चप्पल पड़ी थी?
पड़ी उल्टी, एक वहाँ पर पड़ी। बस जी नजर आ जाती बात है करे पड़े तो बाजू पकड़ के मेरी लड़की को बिल्कुल होश नहीं था। तब मैंने अपनी नंगी थी बिल्कुल, तो मैंने अपना पल्ली में डाल दिया लड़की के शरीर डाल दिया। मैं फिर बीच बाजार में लड़की एकदम घबराई हुई, पूरी घबराई, आंखें नीचे से खून निकल आया आंखों में से मुंह में से, तो बाजू पकड़ के मैं खींचती वही लाई।
On September 14, 2020, Asha's mother found her daughter here, half naked, bleeding and barely alive. For 2 weeks, she was in the hospital, first at the Bagla District Hospital, then at the Jawaharlal Nehru Medical College and Hospital in Aligarh, and finally at Safdarjung Hospital in New Delhi. The doctors diagnosed her with a condition called quadriplegia, meaning complete paralysis in all 4 limbs. With whatever little life was left in her, Asha repeated over and over again to journalists, to doctors, to the police, and finally in a dying declaration to a magistrate that she had been gang raped by 4 men. Asha died on September 29th. Hours after her death, in the dead of the night, she was forcibly cremated by the Uttar Pradesh police. A lot has changed since then. The 4 accused Thakur men, Sandeep, Ravi, Ramu, and Lavkush, were arrested. The investigation was opened by the UP police. After the forced cremation, 5 police officers, including the superintendent of police, were suspended. The investigation was handed over to a special investigation team. A week later, the CBI, the Central Bureau of Investigation, took over the case. On December 19th, 2020, the CBI finally filed a charge sheet which accused all 4 men of gang rape and murder. Yet, the trial drags on. The family was intimidated in court. During a hearing, they live under constant threat and fear of being attacked by the family of the accused or the villagers, who largely believe that this is in fact a case of honor killing and not rape. To understand the gravity of not just the crime, but also how painful a long judicial process is, it's important for us to understand the physical landscape of where the Hathras incident took place, the physical landscape of where the victim's family continues to live, and what that landscape has done to them over the last 1 year. Where we're standing right now is known as the Chandpa area. It has about 600 odd families, of which more than half belong to Thakur caste, about 100 families belong to Brahmin caste, and there are just about 15 Dalit families. In this particular village where the incident took place, there are just 4 Valmiki families who live on the edge of the village. The village is very severely divided along caste lines. There's a very clear designated Thakur lane, there's a clear designated Brahmin lane, and like I said, the Valmikis live on the edge of the village. For the Brahmins and Thakurs, there's a separate designated space of worship. They've created their own temple into which the Valmikis are no longer allowed. That's not where the caste discrimination ends. Listen into what Asha's brother had told us last year about how they treated in this particular village.
यहाँ पर बहुत पिछड़ा वर्ग है। आज भी जो आज से करीब 50-100 साल पहले जो कंडीशन थी हमारे लोगों के साथ, वो आज भी इस गांव में चल रही है। छुआछूत, वो हमारे दरवाजे से निकल गए तो उनकी शान में कमी आ जाएगी। वो हमारे दरवाजे पे आ नहीं सकते किसी भी चीज़ के लिए। अगर कोई आएगा, पहली बात तो अगर जैसे काम कराने के लिए भेजें तो किसी के साथ खबर भेजेंगे, खुद नहीं आएंगे। खेत कटवाने तब भी किसी के साथ खबर भेजेंगे। हैं, इनको मकान ऐसे दिए जाते हैं कि ये जहाँ पर उनका सारा गंद निकल के जाता है वहाँ पर इनको जगह दी जाती है रहने के लिए। आप पूरे यूपी में कहीं भी घूम लें, वाल्मीकि समाज के जो भी घर मिलेंगे वो किसी नाले के किनारे होंगे या किसी नदी के किनारे होंगे, गंदी जगह ऊपर ही होंगे।
For the last 1 year, this village has lived in the shadow of what happened to Asha. To my right is the house of prime accused Sandeep and his uncles Ravi and Ramu. Asha lives exactly opposite. To my left, you can see Asha's house. There's also a garbage dumped right outside Asha's house, and her family alleged that this is because they are a Dalit family. Lavkush, the 4th accused, lives exactly behind Asha's house. Now, the road that we're standing on, which is between the house of the accused and the victim, has become some sort of absurd front line, which is manned by 40 CRPF personnel for the last 12 months, 24/7. Day and night, there are about 40 security personnel standing between the 2 families, making sure that the victim's family remains safe. Now, as the victim's family says, like Asha's brother says, you know, while they do need the protection, they are now living in some sort of protected jail of their own. They say that even if they want to go out to buy vegetables, they have to take permission from the CRPF, who will then then take them out to buy sabzi and bring them back home. The family is not allowed to go out on their own. They're not allowed to go out in their own vehicles. They have to take permission from the CRPF for everything. Even if they go to the court and come back, they have to sign in to their own house. They also live under the continuous watch of 8 CCTV cameras that guard all their movements at all times of the day. Everybody, including journalists visiting the house, have to sign in a register. Let's also not forget that Asha had 3 young nieces, aged 5, 3, and the youngest one who just turned 1 a week ago. All the 3 kids are living under the shadow and backdrop of what happened to their aunt. The 3 young girls can no longer go out to play. They don't mingle with kids of their own age. They don't mingle with people in the village. They somehow have grown used to growing up around these 40 CRPF personnel and a few members of their family, which has now become their new normal. Last year, when the incident happened, the nation had outraged against what had happened to Asha. Journalists, media personnel, politicians had crowded this village. They were angry not just about the fact that a young Dalit woman could get gang raped in broad daylight and murdered, but also they were angry about the fact that the state had gone ahead and forcefully cremated her body at this very spot on 29th September. Actually, on the early morning of 30th September is when the cremation, or rather the body burning, happened. Today, 12 months later, the village is eerily quiet. The family lives in some sort of absurd isolation. Villagers no longer want to speak to the media. Politicians and journalists who had visited this village at that point of time have also moved on from this story. So yes, on September 14, 2020, an extraordinary act of violence happened. We all outraged. But through this year, there's also been the story of a Dalit family that's dared to demand for justice, a deep-seated sadness and violence that they have had to go through because of this long, drawn-out judicial process that they are putting themselves through and choosing to put themselves through. So in that form, this is also the story of a Dalit family that has faced violence and eventually fallen out of our news cycles. This is Nidhi Suresh for Newslaundry.com.
We, being an independent platform, depend on our readers, viewers and listeners. Support independent media by subscribing to Newslaundry. Go to Newslaundry.com, click on the subscribe button at the top and pay to keep news free.